All right, everyone, we are now live and we're beginning our press conference. I want to thank everyone who's here, who's participating. Thanks to any journalists that are present. Good morning. We've called this press conference because the NDP's three-person vetting committee has informed us that leadership hopeful Yves Engler will not appear on the ballot for leader of the federal NDP. And we reject this decision. We reject the notion that three appointed individuals behind closed doors without transparency, accountability, or recourse can decide which voices NDP members are allowed to hear. Activists built the NDP, and we believe that activists should be able to lead it. We're living through unbelievable crises right now: climate, housing, war, inequality, and the people who have been on the front lines of these struggles have to be heard. This is an existential moment, and it calls for courage rather than for exclusion. And this decision is not about Yves alone. Far, far from it. A party without activists has no future. And this is an attack on anyone in this country who dares to question war, who dares to question empire, capitalism, or the status quo. And instead of engaging with ideas, instead of engaging with our platform, this unelected committee has relied on political smears and misrepresentations, deliberate and demonstrably false character assassinations that should shame anyone who believes in democratic debate. The mistreatment by the party is staggering, and we all deserve better than this. We can see that socialist ideas, internationalism, anti-war activism, their popularity is rising across this country. And one has to wonder, if the committee wasn't afraid that Yves could in fact speak to people's greatest hopes for the party, for Canada, and for the world, and win, they wouldn't have shut him out. And there are many activists from many different constituencies who rallied to this campaign because they see a chance for the NDP to rediscover its purpose. And their voices matter. These movements matter. And no committee can veto the political moment that we're living through. So today, we're announcing three things. First, we're appealing this undemocratic decision and calling on the federal council to overturn it. Members deserve the right to choose their leader, not a small body serving the political establishment. Second, Yves will begin a cross-country democracy tour in January. If the party won't allow its members to hear these ideas on the ballot, then we're going to take them directly to the people in union halls, community spaces, campuses, the streets. Third announcement is that we're mobilizing towards the March 2026 convention in Winnipeg. We will be there in strength. We built this campaign because we know that when ordinary people get organized, the impossible becomes inevitable. And what we're doing here, this movement can't be vetted out. And so we're calling on the NDP Federal Council to overturn the decision and to let movement speak, to give power back to the members, to let Yves run and let the members decide. Thank you. So a few notes before we hand it over to our esteemed panelists. Journalists will have an opportunity to ask questions if they want to. And if we have time, we may take some questions from the audience. And each of our speakers is going to have a little bit of time to speak. We're going to be hearing from Mike Palecek, former CUPW president, Rabbi David Mivasair, campaign volunteer representative Jasmine Peardon, and then leadership hopeful Yves Engler. And each of our speakers will just talk for a few minutes. So I'm going to hand it over now to Mike.
Thank you, Bianca. The decision that was just handed down to us puts the NDP's future in jeopardy. A handful of table officers have decided to essentially rig an election by banning the person who's got the largest campaign rallies, who's got over 1,000 volunteers signed up, who's managed to build this momentum. They want to quash this campaign without any democratic representation, without a chance for members to actually make their own decision for who's going to lead this party. So we're here today not just to say that we're disappointed, but to say that we do not accept this decision. We plan to resist it by every means at our disposal. And that means traditional methods of working class struggle. We will protest, we will picket, we will conduct acts of nonviolent civil disobedience. We will not allow this party to be hijacked by a bunch of people who have already driven it into the ground. These people should have resigned the day after the election. And here they are trying to undemocratically hold on to this party. We will not allow it. We will protest at every step, and we will fight to get back on the ballot. We plan to be on the ballot. We plan to be in this race. We are not suspending our campaign. We are going full force straight ahead to challenge these undemocratic maneuvers of a handful of backroom insiders that think they can end democracy in our party. They're in for a rude awakening.
Thank you, Mike. That was Mike Palecek, former head of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Next up, we're going to be hearing from Rabbi David Mivasair. David.
Good, thank you. I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but I think what's most important here is the ideas of this campaign, the perspective that Yves brings to it in such an articulate and well-informed way. So for me, actually, it's not about Yves as a person, even though I just respect him and appreciate him so much, but it's about what he says as a very articulate spokesperson for all the rest of us. The ideas need to be in the discourse. We need to be able to talk about it. Some of those are very well-informed, sharp critiques of the increase in the Canadian military budget, of Canada's military complicity with, for example, with Israel, even with the US as it prepares to possibly invade Venezuela through the course of history and even in the present in Haiti. There's so much that Yves brings to this discussion about military and foreign policy, as well as his very sharp critique of continuing to develop fossil fuels, which are disaster for the entire world. It's something we have to simply stop. It can't be tinkered. It's too late to tone it down, right? Who else is saying this? Yves' approach to the housing crisis, and again, it's not, for me, it's not about Yves as a person. It's about getting these ideas into the discourse so that we can all consider them. And whoever ends up being the leader of the NDP and others in the NDP can promote these ideas. And the process, as Bianca and Mike have already said, the process around this decision is absolutely undemocratic. They're unsubstantiated allegations. They're not even detailed. They're not clear. And for anyone listening who wants to look at the details, look at lawyer Dimitri Lascaris' multi-page letter of appeal that he sent to the NDP. He lays it out so clearly, strongly. I read it last night, and it went far beyond what I already knew. So I encourage anyone to get a hold of that letter from Dimitri. And like Mike said, keep up the fight. And for me, the fight, again, is not so much about Yves, but it's about the kinds of policies and the vision for our country and for the world that we want to uphold. So I will pass this on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, David. Jasmine, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, in the last federal election, the NDP went from 24 to 7 seats, and Jagmeet Singh rightfully stepped down, yet the unelected establishment council is left over, and they're still apparently running the show. They're the ones that blocked this campaign, and they're deciding for who voters get to vote for, and they're running it like a private elite club. One of their stated reasons was there's an unclear commitment to the NDP. And it makes you wonder, like, what is a commitment to the NDP at this point? Because their commitment apparently is losing. Our commitment is to the people, to the land, to the environment. I mean, this is devastating for us and for our future. Like, young people are so disillusioned with politics. We rarely have policies or politicians who offer us anything substantial. We're growing up in a time where we don't know if, like, I don't know if I can afford to have kids because rent keeps increasing every year. Like, the NDP has no right to squash this campaign. This is our future. I've contributed to this platform in designing what I think I need for my future and what people around me need. And we don't want to be involved in genocide. We don't want AI ruining our lives. We don't want corporations trying to squeeze a few dollars out of us at every single turn. We don't want to be trapped in debt for our future. Our policy platform serves youth, young families, elderly, people on disability, and it removes Canadian complicity abroad. We have university clubs reaching out to our campaign, and they're asking us to do talks on our policies because they've never seen a policy platform offer what we're offering in a mainstream party. And the NDP says that there's an incompatibility of values. Well, maybe that's right if it's the NDP establishment choosing the values and not the public, because we're anti-capitalist. We know that life is too unaffordable and that politics are only serving the wealthy. We're also anti-imperialist, unlike the NDP, which has a long history that's recent of supporting imperialism. Our incompatibility of values is just a weapon that they're using against us because it's subjective and because it's vague, and it can mean whatever they want it to mean, and it will always shift over time. They don't want progressive ideas in the race. They don't want policies that serve the youth. The most we get is a youth climate core, which essentially tells our generation that climate change is our problem, not theirs. The NDP establishment just wants to serve corporations and business. So I would rather be outside the party with Yves than inside. The party as it is does not serve us. It does not represent my values. And yeah, the NDP it's untenable, this decision. It needs to change.
Thank you, Jasmine. We're now going to hear from leadership Yves Engler. Go ahead, Yves.
Yeah, well, the first thing is we will keep campaigning on this platform. This was done by dozens and dozens of activists and researchers, done in a very open and democratic way, and we're going to be continuing to be promoting the ideas in the platform at least all the way until the convention at the end of March. And we're going to be touring. We're going to continue putting out press releases, putting out statements, putting out videos. And we're also going to challenge the NDP. We're going to challenge NDP events. We're going to question. We're going to keep campaigning both in terms of our vision for Canada and Canada's role in the world, but also be disruptive in this race if they don't overturn. The Federal Council should overturn their decision, and they should do it as quick as possible. A couple things just on the claims, just to get a sense of like how sloppy, quite frankly, sloppy their decisions were. They cite in this that I have an unclear commitment to the NDP, and they cite a Blue Sky account that is an obvious impersonation account that we have publicly condemned. We've asked to get off a line. They cite that by someone saying that I'm running for the Green Party while I'm running to lead the NDP. Like, that's how sloppy they were in their sort of character assassination or character attack. So it's just, and then when we rebut their claims in this detailed legal response, their response, the review committee's response, was literally one line saying we uphold the vetting committee's decision. They don't even deal with anything that we've written. It's stunning, quite frankly. And anybody who wants these documents, I'm happy to send them, and they can see the whole trail of discussion and the obvious lack of fairness in the process. The NDP has excluded dozens, maybe 100 candidates over the past 10, 20 years that have said they believe Palestinians are equal human beings. We know the most well-known examples are Paul Manley, who goes on to win the seat in Nanaimo for the Green Party after they blocked him. We know people like Rana Zaman. We know people like Morgan Wheeldon. The list is very, very long. It's certainly into the dozens. It may be 100. Immediately when we announced this candidacy, those who've been promoting the genocide in Gaza came out and said, NDP, do not let him run. That was done right away, and that has been done consistently to the point where they were even able to get an event we were organizing in Toronto to have a church withdraw the room booking. So this has to be understood. This has to be understood in the context of Canada's unique, substantial support for the genocide in Gaza. This is not disconnected from a long history of the NDP being anti-Palestinian. Things have changed a bit in recent years, but there is a deep, long history, and this has to be understood in that context. And so anybody who's been appalled, and the vast majority of Canadians are appalled, they think it's a genocide in Gaza. The vast majority of Canadians, they should be questioning this. The other thing is that, as has been mentioned, if there's no support for these ideas, if no one supports this platform, none of the NDP members support this, if they all think that I'm just as this NDP document, I'm a Putin asset, Rwanda genocide denier, anti-Semite, all of this stuff. If they really believe all this stuff, let the members decide. The members will decide whether this is just character assassination or this is real substance. The fact that they have made this intervention and they won't let members decide speaks to the fact that they're actually a little bit nervous. We have raised over $100,000. We have signed up large numbers of people. We've done big events, probably some of the biggest events, maybe the biggest event in Toronto a couple of weeks ago in this whole leadership race. And we have done that without access to the full NDP listserv that all of the other candidates have been using. We've raised the money without being able to provide the tax credits. We are constrained by Elections Canada rules, but we can't provide the tax credits. There is significant support for this campaign. I would say very clearly, there's far more support for this campaign than I believed when we began this process in July. I did not believe there would be this level of support, financial and otherwise, for this campaign. Yeah. And the NDP has been made nervous by that. I speak French. The other candidates, as we just saw a couple of weeks ago, don't speak French. The issue of military spending. This is something I've been working on for many, many years. And the other candidates are starting to catch up, it looks like, on this issue. They're starting to understand this is a huge threat, not just to the world. This is a huge threat to our social programs. We're seeing cutbacks in the federal service. We're seeing cutbacks on climate in the recent budget. And this is the stuff that we're talking about in this campaign. We're not sticking to just what's in the dominant media. We're going out with broader. And I think there are lots and lots and lots of NDP members and the general public that are supportive of this. There was a recent Insight poll, mid-November. 28% of Canadians say they prefer socialism. 27% prefer capitalism. 43% are concerned with capitalism. 50% of swing voters are critical of capitalism. This is Insight, very establishment polling institute. The NDP should allow a campaign that is calling for socialism, activism, and justice onto this campaign, and we are not accepting this decision.
Thank you, Yves. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who spoke today. So I do see that we have a number of journalists in the audience. If there are any amongst the journalists that would like to ask a question, this is the opportunity to do so. That is, of course, optional, but if you'd like to, this is the time to do that. I'm just going to check the hands that are raised. So I think, we have a question from David Baxter. So David, I'm just going to unmute you and allow you to talk. If you could just let us know what outlet you're with and ask your question to one or several of the panelists.
For sure. No, thanks, Bianca. Yeah, David Baxter, Canadian Press. Yeah, Mr. Engler, we've talked a lot about stuff that was in the NDP decision, but one thing that didn't come up yet was, as the party points out in their decision that they did share around with some journalists, is harassment allegations, talking about a high volume of complaints about behavior like following people to private accommodations, private vehicles, demanding they answer your questions and saying they feel unsafe about that. Just how do you respond to the NDP saying that part of the reason they aren't allowing you to run are these, harassment and intimidation allegations?
Well, we responded in our um, the letter that Dimitri sent asking for details on these allegations. Place, name, time, anything. And they gave us zero. There is no specific, there's no document they've sent and said, hey, someone sent us in a limit, cover the name. Someone sent us in saying on this date, Eve did this to me or da da da. Nothing. Zero. Zero evidence. Ask them for it. There's nothing. I have been accused of harassment. Dahlia Kurtz got the police back in February to claim that my responses to her pro-genocide posts on X, never talked to her, never met her, never privately messaged her, never emailed her, don't even follow her on X. They got the police to accuse me of, or to charge me for harassment. I spent 5 days in jail over it, and then they dropped the charges in July. I have a case with a Montreal police officer after promoting a letter writing campaign in response to the absurd Dahlia Kurtz charges, where the Montreal police officer claimed that me promoting an Action Network email campaign that led to thousands of emails being sent to the police department, that was harassment of the Montreal police. This is all political. This is all political. I have the allegations that have been brought up in different forms. This is all political questions. I have challenged Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Stephen Guilbeault, Anna Gainey, Jagmeet Singh on political things. I have done what could be argued as street journalism, right? Sure. This is not harassment. This is challenging power. This is questioning power. And quite honestly, shame on the NDP for going into the gutter like this. This is gutter. This is gutter stuff. They know that, and I share all this stuff on my own X and Twitter, my own Facebook, social media. I'm not hiding anything. There's nothing being hidden here. It's all on my X account or my Facebook account or whatever. So, give us some details, right? Does the NDP want to go on record and say they think I harassed Dahlia Kurtz? Do they want to go on record and say they think I harassed the Montreal police officer? Give us some details, NDP.
Go ahead, David.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Other David, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's a David.
Yeah, little confusing, but David Baxter, I wanted to just add something that Yves didn't say, but it's in what Dimitri wrote. So a lot of what Yves is doing really is what he just called street journalism. And you as a journalist know how evasive public officials can be, elected public officials who are responsible to us, and they do not like to talk with us. They don't say what's going on. They need to be pursued. There aren't really venues to be able to do that. So Yves, I think, has been exemplary in trying to get public officials who are accountable to the voters and the public to respond to some of the critical issues of our time. And they don't make themselves available, so he actually has to kind of go after them. Yeah, and that's probably, I don't imagine that's what you do for the Canadian Press, or I don't know if that's taught in journalism school, but it's part of what we, the people, need to have somebody do So we can hear from these people. And if they still refuse to talk, which is normally the case, and they literally run away, and Eve is I'd say, brave enough to go after them and capture that on video, at least we know. We get to see what they're doing. And if he wasn't doing that, I don't know if any other media would even be exposing them in that way. So they might feel harassed, but there's good reason for it. So the bigger picture is to really look at like what is behind these allegations of harassment. It may be very well deserved. If it is harassment, I'm not sure what the definition of harassment is, but I think we have a person here who's trying to get the truth to share that with everybody else here in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mike, your response?
Yeah, let's be clear about something. Eve is a professional journalist. He's a union member. This is how he makes his living. The NDP is supposed to be a party of workers, and here they are accusing him of harassment for doing his job. What has he done? He has approached ministers of the federal government in a public place on the street to ask them questions that they don't want to answer. That is the job of a journalist. A journalist is supposed to ask politicians questions that make them uncomfortable. And for a minister of the federal government to claim that she's being harassed or intimidated by a journalist asking questions of her in the street when she's surrounded by police officers and security, if that is a bar for intimidation for a minister of the federal government, I would suggest she's in the wrong line of work.
So just as someone who has, seen the file, I want to just make it clear that there's no complainants, there's no specifics, there's no incidents described. No one on our team was contacted for clarification. We reviewed the file. There was nothing resembling a harassment complaint. If there had been any legitimate concern, we would have welcomed a transparent process, a fair process. But instead, these were vague accusations that were made behind closed doors in a very unfair process that we were unable to respond to. And again, this unelected committee has used these unsubstantiated claims essentially to block democratic choice. Like that is what that has done, and it's truly shameful that it's happened in this way. And I think that any party that's dedicated to justice and democracy cannot allow anonymous smears to decide who members are allowed to vote for. So, we stand for transparency, for accountability, and this process had none of those things. David, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, just quickly too. Talked about the now over $100,000 raise. I take it that's going to be what's going to fund this continued campaign outside of the official one.
Yeah, yes. We've raised about just under 110, and we've done that without access to the NDP list, without access to the tax credits, though we have completely followed Elections Canada rules. We've been maxed at $1,750 for individual donors. There's been a lot of attention devoted to this question of the funding. There's been efforts to try to kind of smear us as there's memes out there of taking money to Tahiti and stuff like that. We have spent about 35,000 or so on campaign so far. So we have about 65, 70 in the bank. And we're going to use that. Well, first of all, we want to be in this race. We want the federal council to overturn it. So we still want to give the NDP $100,000, and we have no doubt that if they reverse this decision, we will be able to get that to raise the rest of the money that's necessary. So we want to give the NDP $100,000 to be able to participate in this race fully. But obviously, the resources that are there will be used to keep campaigning, and we're going to campaign at least up till the NDP convention. And as I've stated, I've been asked this a couple of times now in the last bit. If anyone comes and says they want their money back, we'll give them their money back. The reality is about 700 people have donated. I don't know the exact number. Some 700 plus people have donated to the campaign. 2 months ago, there was a big kerfuffle about funding. There was all these allegations trying to claim that we were doing something dubious with the money. One person At that point, it's about 500 people donated. One person who had donated $50 got in touch asking for their money back. When we explained the situation, they said, no, oh yeah, that makes sense. So there has been this whole business of like focus on the money and there's something kind of dubious. The donors to this campaign have not made any noise, or like I said, one person, any noise. People fully understood what they were doing when they donated. They understood that there was obstacles to participating. They understood they weren't going to get a tax credit from Elections Canada. They understood the situation. All this noise about the funding question is outside noise that has been essentially used to sort of discredit us. We've done everything above board. We spent a long time to get a proper bank account, to get a proper financial agent. We have all getting everyone's information, following all Elections Canada rules. All that has been completely above board. The money is sitting in a Caisse Desjardins account. It's fully accounted for, et cetera, and it will be used if the NDP doesn't reverse the decision. It will be used obviously to keep campaigning and to draw attention to the lack of democracy, and it will be used by the committee that's been organizing all this stuff. This is not just me. There's a committee that comes together with a weekly meeting of a dozen people that represent different committees that we have, and the decisions will be made all collectively and openly and transparently.
Thank you. David, did you want to contribute to that? David Mivasair?
Yeah, I'd just like to say all these donations are from people who see this campaign as a vehicle for furthering the politics that they believe in, right? And we want the NDP to serve that role, right? That's why we're trying to influence the NDP. But every penny given was given because somebody believed that this is the way that we could have a positive impact on politics in Canada. And as Eva said, nobody got a tax rebate for it or any kind of thing like that. So I think it's very legitimate to use the funds to continue to further the goals of the campaign. And as Eve said, if anybody wants their money back, just let him know and he'll send it back.
Yeah, absolutely. All funds were raised for political organizing. So that is exactly how that money would be used. Like everyone has said, this money came from supporters who really believed in this campaign, believe in democratic participation, and we will honor that. Okay, so David, unless you have any more questions, we'll move on to our next journalist, Nick. From Rabble. Nick, please go ahead and ask your question.
All right, thank you very much. Yves, you mentioned that you'd hoped that the committee is going to reverse this decision. I was wondering, is there a formal appeals process that you can pursue, or has the committee said that this would be a final decision?
No, well, the review committee that we applied to after the vetting committee, they denied it. They denied it with one line, with no response to our substantive response to the vetting committee's allegations. So there is no process there, but and Mike can probably speak to this better, the federal council, I believe with a 2/3 majority, can overturn this decision. So they can overturn it. It's obviously not a common thing to have happen.
So would that mean that your next steps are to campaign the federal council to overturn the decision?
Yeah, we've already begun getting emails to the federal council calling for that. And we sent a letter to the federal council yesterday, and so we're making a plea to the federal council to step in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Barry, go ahead and ask your question. Well, it's also written in the chat here, so I'll just read it.
I can ask the question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sisters and brothers, friends. I'm asking this on behalf of the Red Review, which is a monthly magazine on which I serve as one of the editors. The question is simply this: Yves, What do you say to NDP members who say they are fed up with NDP undemocratic procedures and pro-capitalist policies and who seek an alternative political movement?
Well, the first thing I'd say is they should contact the federal council to overturn this decision that is blocking a campaign that has a comprehensive platform drawn up by 50 or so activists and researchers that I think is a quite a unique document in NDP. I think at least going back to the Waffle Manifesto in terms of very clear, comprehensive platform. Capitalism can't be fixed onwards to a socialist future. So they should email the federal council and say, we want this platform part of the NDP leadership race. Bigger question of, and they should also participate in highlighting the lack of democracy this decision represents, the attack against members that this decision represents. And there's going to be lots of opportunities in the coming weeks and months for people to make their voices heard in this NDP leadership race on these questions, and I think people should take those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone else on the panel that wants to comment on that?
Yeah, I would say that this is an opportunity to change the direction of this party. And challenging power is never easy, but that's exactly what we're doing. And so what I would say to those people is to get active with this campaign. Join this campaign. And I would say that not just to NDP members, but for everyone who is fed up with the direction that the NDP has gone, for every activist that's been held out of these spaces, for every Palestine supporter that's been vetted out of a race and not been allowed to run, for every radical that thinks that the NDP needs to do better and stand up and fight for the working class and fight against the capitalist system and fight against climate change and do everything we can to stop this genocide. If everybody who feels this way joins this campaign, joins our protest movement to put pressure on this party, I think we can do it. So that's the call that we put out. Join this campaign. Help us fight for democracy in the party. Help us fight for socialism. Help us fight for justice.
Thank you. And, to that, I would add that this total crisis of democracy with this unelected vetting committee, I think it deserves the full attention of every person that cares about grassroots politics. And I think that's the moment that we're in right now. So I'm trying to see if we have any more questions. I don't see any more hands up. Yuri, did you want to ask your question? Just one question. It looks like we have one audience question. Don't see it. Just one moment. Just give me a moment. Okay, go ahead and ask your question, Yuri.
Thank you, Bianca. Yuri Spouter of 1+1. My three questions are this. Yves, who would you support first, second, or third choice?
Pretty good. Not perfect.
Doesn't succeed.
It says right here, your internet connection is unstable.
I've just muted it. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so first question, who would you support, Yves? First, second, or third choice if the appeal campaign doesn't succeed? Second question is this, and it's also a statement. Truth doesn't make a noise and isn't allowed to even make a ripple. Imperialism clearly is the last biggest taboo in Canadian body politics and the public at large. Any more responses to that, especially the attacks that the NDP seem to have made regarding Ukraine, Russia, NATO, the ridiculous Rwanda genocide denialism smear, and your defense of Syria against Western Gulf Israeli aggression? And then last question, and I would love the other panelists' response on this is do you think sending your application from the get-go much earlier would have made a difference? Because I know that you and the campaign have often faced criticism for not sending your application to be vetted way before this month and that debate discussion that was held in Montreal. Thank you.
Well, it was clear when on September 20th when they refused my participation in the Ontario NDP convention that it was they were angling to not let us in the race. That was clear. It was clear before that. They made right from the get-go, they wouldn't interact with our financial agent. They wouldn't they waited a whole long time to give us a nomination signatures package. There's a whole series of moves early on that demonstrated that they weren't going to treat us fairly. And so we were caught in a tough position because obviously we wanted to have access to the NDP list. We wanted to have access to the tax credits. But we knew that they were likely to vet us out. So the logic was we build support, we show that it's a serious campaign. And what they would have done if they would have vetted us out early on is they would have said, they were never going to be able to raise the money. They were never a serious campaign. It was just this sort of marginal left kind of effort. And that's how they were going to frame it. So what we did is we showed that we had lots of support. We could raise money. We did lots of events. And I should also say we've greatly impacted the tone of the debate in the race so far. We just saw that 48 hours ago where Avi put out a video about abolishing student debt and tuition, which is a position we've been pushing repeatedly over the past few months. And we've seen that with Heather McPherson on the housing question and calling for a national emergency in housing. She's not going as far as we're going in terms of turning the real estate investment trusts into co-ops, but she's gone a significant way. Same thing on prosecuting Canadians who fought in Gaza. So we've already greatly shaped the tone of the debate, and that was part of the motivation to keep campaigning kind of somewhat on the sidelines. So I don't think I think we've been strategic with how we've operated on that. So I don't regret that. We were in a tough position, and I think that the NDP never planned to offer us a real opportunity. Now, from you hit on the point. I mean, the central point here, we have to be clear, and it's in the document. It's all about these foreign policy issues. They don't talk anything about our platform. There's only one criticism of the platform. It's about us saying that we should abolish the terrorism list. That's the only thing that's in our platform that they really kind of center. The rest of it's sort of just attacks, kind of personal attacks against positions I've taken over the years. In fact, abolishing the terrorism list is the position of the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, which includes the Canadian Labour Congress, Unifor, Steelworkers, Amnesty International. So they all take the position that the terrorism list should be abolished, and that's in the NDP's document against us, saying one of the reasons to not allow us in this race. But mostly, you're right. They talk about foreign policy issues, and they're basically, in a certain sense, this can be summed up as Canadian foreign policy supports U.S. empire and supports Canadian corporate interests and is fundamentally anti-democratic, anti-human. And the NDP has largely aligned with that foreign policy, and they don't want somebody who has criticized that foreign policy and criticized the NDP's alignment with that foreign policy to be part of this race. That is in large part what this boils down to.
Thank you, Yves. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the question period. And so we'll just hear any final remarks from our speakers before we close out. Mike.
Yeah, actually, just to respond to that question, it's important to understand that the NDP leadership race is still open. Like, we have until January. New people can still come forward to run for the NDP. Yves has done nothing wrong in preparing his campaign ahead of time before applying, and in fact, despite all of the loud complaining we've heard about supposed rule violations, that didn't come up as a reason for barring Yves from the race. The vetting committee apparently didn't raise it, didn't see it as a problem. So. I think if we had gone and applied on day one right off the bat, they would have simply ruled us out of the race, and tried to do so quietly. That's actually why they don't want you to announce your intention to run until they've already given you permission, because they would like to avoid this exact situation. They would like to avoid being challenged on their undemocratic maneuvers. Well, that's not going to happen with this campaign. They are not going to avoid that. We are going to go full force campaigning, protesting this rigging of this election.
Go ahead, David. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, so I live in Hamilton, and I was active in Sarah Jama's campaign. I know the ONDP and the federal NDP are two different organizations, but the treatment that the people of Hamilton Center were subjected to by the ONDP leadership is really like just very similar to this, where I'll just say Sarah Jama won the absolute majority of votes in every polling place, 55 polling places in our riding. She won over 50% of the vote against three other candidates, and every one of them. And the ONDP excluded her as a candidate. We were actively involved. I was the vice president of the Riding Association. The NDP leadership didn't even respond to our letters. I was the membership secretary of the EDA. They wouldn't release the membership list to me, the membership secretary, because they were afraid that we would contact the members. We are the party. We are the party. Who do they think they are, these people running this organization, right? So again, I'm not confused that the federal NDP is actually the ONDP. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but the dynamic here is so similar, right? And then the other thing I want to say, not so much, well, I guess to everybody here, I think starting a different party, like withdrawing from the NDP and having yet another party, it could be a way to make some points or have somebody listen, but it's not a way to actually build any kind of like power or influence policy. I think the fight has to stay within the NDP. Look for ways that we can have some impact and stay with it. And whether or not Eve is allowed to run for leader, continuing to raise the issues and talk about what's important and keep putting that out before people so they at least hear it and can think about it, because they're not getting it anywhere else. I think that really is the task that we should devote ourselves to. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Jasmine?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add, but I'll just say that the only fights that are worth fighting are the ones that you're probably going to lose. We have a responsibility to people who are struggling more than us, who don't have time to organize or to protest, to the global south, to our parents who are aging. Wins will come, but we're going to have to keep fighting and expect that this is just going to happen over and over again. Because as Jasmine, our anti-imperialist scholar, reminds me every single meeting, it's our moral responsibility to keep going and to keep fighting.
Thank you, Jasmine. Yves?
Yeah, just picking up on that point, they don't call it a struggle for no reason, right? It's if you're confronting power, it's obviously a tall hill to climb, and we're not deterred. We're going to continue. Hopefully, the federal council overturns this. We've already impacted the debate in the race. We'll continue to impact the debate in the race. We're going to be there at the convention in Winnipeg. And we are demanding to be brought back in the race, and we're demanding that the NDP allows for anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist viewpoints to be part of the party and the race, and onwards.
Yeah, onwards. Thank you. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. Thanks to people who joined us from home, to our journalists, to our panelists, to our campaign activists. Thank you, Yves, for running and taking the hit for all of us. Yeah, what happens next really does matter. For this campaign, for the NDP, for the future of democracy. We're not going anywhere. To the federal council, we say overturn this decision. And to our supporters, to the activists, we would say stay loud, stay organized, and stay courageous, and let the members decide. All right, thank you. Thanks to everyone. We have an organizing meeting tonight at 6:30 p.m. We encourage everybody to come out. Thanks again. Thanks, everyone. Good night.